Yeah, we're ready. Who's good?
It's Perrin's turn.
I got to start.
Yeah, you're the host.
All right, guys, we are back. Obviously, congrats to Noah for finishing it out strong. He had some really, really strong performances on the back end. So hardcore parkour was the bike, toes to bar, dumbbell snatch.
Echo bike, toes to bar, dumbbell snatch, toes to bar, burpee box jump over. You watched Tanner and Frank, right? I had went back down into the warm-up area, so I missed the end of that heat.
Yeah, they both did pretty well in their heat. Tanner was like, I think, second or third in the heat. The two guys ahead of him, he was pulling with the whole time. And then the two guys that I think ended up winning the heat in that were just had a lot of energy on the burpees. And you can tell Tanner was like just pushing hard and got to the burpees and he was like at his limits on it. But I think like his pacing, he was one of the first off the bike. So I was just proud to see him just get after it, you know, and you could tell he was hungry to like earn a good event finish. So yeah, it was a good start to the day.
That's a really hard thing when you're in heat 1 of day 3. If you had aspirations of making the top 10 or making the last chance or making a top 5, at that point, mathematically, you're completely out of it.
Yep.
And it's so easy to just check out and not compete and put your best foot forward, which I think is a huge mistake because you're literally practicing being on a competition floor and not being your best. So I was happy to see that he decided that he was going to push and, you know, try to stay in the mix with the top people in that heat.
Yeah. And I think it's important to do that because you didn't set out to achieve the goal you had at the start of the weekend. But like, if you have been just kind of getting your ass kicked through the weekend, one good event finish can kind of change the narrative on that a little bit and let you leave the event feeling a little bit better about it, like finishing stronger in a way.
You can actually change the leaderboard too if you like really crush the workout.
Yeah, we see that coming up soon here. Frank did good too. I mean, Frank is not going to be the most powerful on the bike. He made up a lot of ground on his toe to bar and dumbbell snatch. And then even the burpees, he's great at burpees, but getting up and over the box, it was just like where you got to the box at that point was just kind of where you finished in placement wise. No one was really making up a lot of ground there.
Also, it was 48 inches high. So I think being short is like, okay, that's a big jump every single time to climb over it. So
it made like a level playing field for bigger guys that where smaller guys could usually like rack up speed on burpees.
So Mike, actually, we talk about the bike not being a separator. Well, he had a fairly conservative pace because I think being too aggressive on that was going to blow up. And what happened was he started the workout and he's going and his screen is not on. But
I had that happen once at a regional.
Yeah. So
he still got off just over 3 minutes.
Well,
so he must have biked faster.
Towards the end of the workout, the guy I don't know how he came up with it, but he's just like, go to 1.93.
Yeah.
So I think it ended up being pretty fair.
I think that's all you can do in the moment. Like, it's got to be quick.
Yeah. So, I mean, he took 19th on that workout. I think it felt harder on him than in practice. And I think it's just the accumulation of the weekend, stressed. He's been dealing with this quad thing. But he pushed through. He took probably a little bit more breaks than planned, but I was really proud of him, especially on the burpees, because it's only 20 burpees and they're kind of slow, but you cannot slow down your speed because every second really counted. So he didn't get any no reps that whole workout. And that was another theme of the weekend. Like he got so many no reps on wall balls. And I just think it's really hard sometimes when you know you're doing a lot of extra work and you're questioning whether or not it's deserved. And, I think the whole mental battle throughout the weekend of him being a little bit beat up and really wanting to prove to himself that he has improved since last year. And I think he did that on that workout too. Yeah. Lee did really well. I mean, I think the trend for Lee all weekend was he was just super, super consistent.
Yeah. Yep.
I think he was one of the first people off the bike in his heat. And we had some debate over in the back, just like, what pace are you going to hold on this thing? But I think everyone kind of figured out, knowing the bike wasn't going to be the huge separator in this workout. But he finished in 16th. And the difference, there was like a huge difference in like 20 seconds between like 10 spots. So even like between him and Mike, it was 10 seconds and it was 19th to 16th. So I think to that point too, getting out in a lead and being able to maintain that, like you guys said, if you got to the box before someone else, there wasn't really a lot of changing as far as placement.
I didn't see anyone who won the bike win the event necessarily, but I did see people who were the last off the bike not get closer to finishing near the top. Like, I think it's one of those where you don't want to like blow it out too early on a movement like that at the start of the workout, but you also don't want to be so far behind the pack because it's just like really, you're just chasing the entire workout at that point.
Yeah, that actually kind of leads into Noah and Jake. So I was super confused watching the females did this workout right before the males, and they had a 2K bike and they were getting off the bike at just over 3 minutes.
3 and change,
yeah, 3:03, 3:05. And I was like, hold on, wait, is this the same distance? Like I had the males tested and they were getting off the bike like just under 3. So I thought that the bikes were different or there was something going on, and spent probably 30 minutes trying to talk back and forth with Noah about getting strategy. Cause he was out of a qualifying position. And I was like, look, I know you don't have to hammer the bike, but we also can't get off the bike out of like way out of the race and try to expect to come back on something this short.
Yeah.
So we talked back and forth, and Jake was back there, and we kind of settled on getting a pace. And they came off the bike, I think around the same time. Like the lead pack came off at like 240-ish or 242, and I think they were just at 250. And before the workout, Noah was like, man, my core's really shot. Should I break this first set of toes to bar? And I was like, man, I don't think at this point in the workout or of the competition, with 10 hungry people that want a CrossFit Games spot on a workout that's sub 10 minutes, you can go like conservative bike pace, conservative brake strategy, and still come back to win. So we ended up picking that strategy, and he got out to the lead and pretty much stayed in the lead almost all the way through the entire workout.
It was kind of like him and Christopher back and forth for most of it.
But didn't Dallin Pepper at the end catch up?
Yeah, he caught up a good bit too. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget. And then so Noah gets to the burpee box jump overs, and I think he was like 3 ahead maybe of Christopher. Christopher got a couple no reps. And then at that point it was like pandemonium. I could not see what the hell was going on.
We were like yelling for Noah, and I was like, wait, like we need to see who else is going fast on these, because Noah started to slow.
Yeah, he got
like last 8.
Yeah, really slow. And I was like, oh shit, I hope these people can't catch up. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, Jake Berman wins the heat. And I was like, what the?
We all were like, Jake Berman.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jake was, I mean, he was probably 4th or 5th to the box. And he was at least 4 burpees behind by the time Noah had started.
Yeah. He was like right with the top guys the whole time. And actually talking with him in the back before that, he was really confident in the event. He was asking, do you think I should break the dumbbell snatches? And I was like, everyone I've seen so far is doing them unbroken. And he's like, whatever, I know my plan. And I was like, I don't think you can do both. I think you need to pick one where you do 2-3 sets unbroken and then take a break. Anyways, his cycle rate was really fast, and his plan worked too, right? He did. Yeah. Just one time, but he ended up like pausing the shoulder a little bit. And anyway, it was just smart for him. And yeah, I got him to the box in a good position, and dude just turned on the jets. It was awesome.
That was a highlight of my weekend, even though it didn't solidify anything, just Jake and Noah finishing 1-2. Jake at that point was in 10th with a pretty wide points gap, so he needed to make something happen. And Noah was in 7th. The point gap wasn't huge, but just finishing in 2nd is like, okay, you're going to get big points, and there's going to be some separation. So that workout catapulted Noah back into a qualifying spot, and it put Jake in 7th with I think it was like a 30-something point gap, which is not insurmountable, but you're going to have to kind of get some help. So that kind of set the stage for the final workout.
Ladies,
we got to go to the ladies first.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Jordan had to withdraw, and we had a conversation Saturday night. She was like, I'm not feeling well. And I had a feeling from the beginning of the weekend that she seemed off. Like, there were a lot of signs of it, but it's like, as a coach, you don't know if it's just nerves, you don't know what's going on. So you don't want to have them kind of like think about that and ruminate on it. So, but to me, she just seemed tired and not herself. So I really wasn't surprised. She ended up withdrawing in the morning, which I think was a good call. But, I do want to say the one issue that, with the legless rope climb. I did talk to, I think her name's Jenny Orr from CrossFit at the end of that day. And she came back the next morning, came to me. She said, I talked about it with my team, and we changed the workout or changed her score. Good. So they gave her back. I don't know how much it was, but, instead of 4 seconds, like it definitely improved. And I think for Jordan too, it's like, okay, I'm leaving this, even though I didn't finish what I came here to do. I feel like it was fair instead of kind of just feeling like you've been knocked down all weekend.
Yeah.
But then, so she wasn't in it. I watched a little bit of Danielle. Did you guys watch Danielle at all in this one?
Yeah, I did. I thought she looked pretty strong. I think it just came down to just capacity overall, but like execution looked good in it. Snatches were strong. And I mean, the speed is what it is on the burpee box jump over. Some girls could just move over the box quick, but she was in a race with her heat, and like she was in a competitive race with the girls in her heat. And you know, like when you're at that point in the end of the weekend, you're just racing in your heat. You're not concerned with the heats after you anymore. So it like, I don't want to say it makes you go slower, but it is like hard to put up the faster times, which you know you could probably be competitive with in the heat after you.
Yeah. The workout for females, it seemed like that second set of toes to bar was an even bigger separator, and the burpees were just kind of smooth and steady for everybody.
Yeah. Whereas
the guys like Jake proved that you could actually make up a substantial amount of time by burpeeing fast at the end of that workout.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely saw the women breaking the second set of toe to bar a lot relative to how much the men were having to break it up at the end. Oh. Cal did well. I thought she executed well on it. I think the big one there was just confidence on the bike. I think she was too concerned with blowing up on the remaining stuff that she was one of the last off the bike. And like we talked about earlier, there's not really much making up after that point. Like her toe to bar and snatches looked really good in the first set. The second set, she kind of blew up on them a little bit. And then the burpees, like, again, like we talked about, you're kind of like where you're at your finish point where you start the burpees relative to the field. But her snatches, I mean, it just looked like a toy. It's so easy. Yeah. So, you know, if you can just get out ahead and then hold on to that, you actually like discourage competitors watching you do that. And it's an even bigger advantage moving forward. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. Workout 6 for the ladies. I mean, we'll talk about our ladies, but I also think too, just the race and the points was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's true.
It was such an exciting event, knowing that like there's a lot on the line. Yeah. I mean, it's tough when you go to an event and you're like, everything's kind of solidified in the final event. And you're like, yay, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It was both the male and female side both had a like crazy ending with that last set of overhead lunges.
Yeah. So the women, I guess like observations on that workout, ring muscle ups were the limiter, you know, like most of the field was having to break them up way more, especially the first and second heat.
Yeah.
The barbell relative to the men looked way lighter. Yeah. And I think once you got to that last barbell, there really wasn't any catching anyone. Like there are a few women that failed some of the lunges, but for the most part, they were cycling it really fast. So it was kind of like do the workout, race to the barbell. And then again, like you're kind of like set in your position through the finish there. Did you guys notice the same thing?
Yeah. I feel like the females in that workout, it was basically, if you took the amount of time that it took to do the 18 ring muscle ups and 12 bar muscle ups, that was pretty much how the workout was separated. There were a couple people at the end that fell apart on that overhead walking lunge, but for the most part, it seemed like if you fell behind in that muscle up set, you could just never catch back up in the beginning.
I think the difference was in the final heat of women, you saw the overhead lunge be more exposing because their capacity is so much higher on the gymnastics that they were able to like red line to that point. Whereas a lot of the other women in the field, they're doing 2s and 3s on muscle ups, taking lots of breaks. So their heart rate is just not elevated in the same way. So they would like finish the bar muscle ups and then they would just go unbroken on the bar and lunge super fast. You just didn't see that with the final heat of women because they were like messed up trying to get to that last bar.
It was like way more Metcon-y.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I thought they both executed pretty well. They're both, bigger, stronger female athletes. So
Danielle and Cal.
Yeah, Danielle and Cal. So having a lot of gymnastics in the workout against that field is going to be penalizing a little bit. But I thought that, they executed it pretty well relative to what their fitness levels were.
Yeah. Danielle finished 20th. Cal was 17th. So a little below mid pack on that. But I think execution wise, it looked good. Cal, it was one of those like, if it was either a little heavier or slightly less gymnastics, she could have done way more damage because like watching her move the barbell was just so funny.
Yeah.
It was so easy and light.
Yeah. I think there's going to be good lessons learned, I think, for her in terms of just like going into the semifinals in those fields and realizing where you have to take risks and when to be aggressive and when to be conservative and just be maybe more mindful with the approach to each workout in those types of settings. But
overall
good execution.
Awareness, right?
Yeah,
like little things, like if you want to do well and want to be in the competitive mix of a field, like the top 10, there's really not space to be conservative on anything. Like there's obviously you don't want to make dumb mistakes, but I tell athletes, I'm like, you have to take chances on your strengths and you pace your weaknesses. And to be in the mix of top 10, you're going to have to take more risks than not. Otherwise, you will be mid-pack, and it'll be very safe and conservative and comfortable, but that's the spot that you earned. So
yeah. All right, off to the guys.
Yeah. So Mike on this last one, this was probably the one he was the most concerned about with his quad
with
thing.
his leg.
Yeah, and I think it's the last event of the weekend, and just a little bit tired. So I haven't talked to him specifically about this, but he finished 22nd. He's stayed in it the whole time. So I was really proud of him for finishing he finished really strong. He finished the overhead lunge unbroken, which actually a lot of people did not do.
Yeah.
So I think he knew he had to pace himself to get to that point.
Yeah.
And he had a little bit of a foot race, if you want to call it that, with a lunge with John Colty in the next lane at the end. And he really, really pushed. So I'm super proud of him. I thought he was actually going to withdraw after the complex.
Yeah.
So I think for finishing out the weekend, he still, his overall finish was an improvement from last year. And I think he had a lot more in the tank. So overall, I think it wasn't the weekend that he wanted, but for him, it's always been in-person competition experience. And I think he can take away a lot from this weekend. And I'm looking forward to talking to him and building for next year.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought Frankie had a strong finish too. I mean, it was his second best finish of the weekend. He looked strong in the movements. I think maybe he was a little too conservative in the beginning because I was watching him, like he's very strong at ring muscle ups. It looked like he may have overpaced the front squat and the lunges because that's where he lost like a lot of ground. I think I saw him do the front squats pretty strong and quick, and then he did like a small lunge set and then broke.
Yeah, it was
and
5 feet. It was like 2 steps.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the guys, you could tell like it kind of like it felt hard and it made them kind of panic a bit. Like, oh man, like this, like I have to make it to this point. And they just immediately because they would like stand up and you could see they were thinking for a minute and then they would drop.
Yeah.
You know, almost like I'm not sure how far to go with this lunge. So.
Somebody also broke. I think it was the leader broke after. And I think sometimes when you have somebody in a leadership position that does it, it like sets the tone like, oh, this is okay.
Yeah.
Like everyone's going to have to break it.
Yeah, for sure.
Not thinking that, okay, maybe that guy was in a leadership position because he blew himself up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean if you're following him that you have to break it. Like that might be
you saw that a lot.
Chance to overtake.
Yeah, you saw that a lot. I mean, even if it wasn't the leader, it was the guy next to you. If he's like, 4 or 5 lunges ahead, you saw him break and you would see the next person break, almost like, okay, like this is where the break needs to be, because he's ahead of me. So that's what I believe is what's necessary. So, definitely some mental stuff there, but his bar muscle ups look strong and he finished strong on the shoulder overhead and the overhead lunge at the end.
Yeah. Frankie, from my conversations with him, it was about gaining experience and getting out on the competition floor against these high level people. And he was talking about how, it's a different experience because he trains by himself in his garage and, being out on the floor with different timetables and loud music and people that are fast. And he's like, you just can't really replicate this in training. And you have to be here to get better at it. So I don't know what his expectations were, but I feel like he actually handled himself well all weekend. And it's really at this point a matter of just like, hey, these fields are really good. So you got to come out and again, kind of take risks where you can take them and, figure out where you're comfortable striving for in that field.
Yeah. With Frankie, I will say something that's an awesome takeaway is like he was the lower end of the pack majority of the weekend, but his attitude was actually really good the whole time. And it's hard to watch when someone's like not getting their way in an event. They're complaining about no reps, they're judging or, an injury, whatever. And like, it is what it is. Like you're here to compete and, you don't have time to complain about that. Just pull out if you have to, if you're injured, but otherwise stay positive in it. And he finished strong and kept his head up all weekend. And I don't know, it was awesome to see that like, all right, I'm still just learning and making the best out of this, even though it's not like leaderboard wise crushing it.
Yeah. Lee,
Mr. Consistent, had a very consistent finish. Dead center of the pack again. I thought he looked strong in it. I think the bar for him was a little tough and heavy. His gymnastics are really strong. So it just came down to him managing, when he would need to break and just getting a little bit stronger, handling that like heavier, moderate load under fatigue and just being confident with it.
Yeah. I saw, so Lee came out here. Lee follows TTT Compete, which is our online training program, not like individual coaching. So I'm way more familiar with Noah's training and his speeds and all of that type of stuff. But Lee came out to a semifinal camp. So I got to meet him, kind of watch him train and then getting to watch him through this weekend. And he's just a a really smooth, level-headed competitor,
Yeah.
moves really well. I think he's got a lot of upside, and he executed really well. It's just it's almost like a strength and power gap relative to that like top 5 group. They're just you know more raw strength and more explosiveness, and that's just something that over time you got to train and continue to do. But both him and Evan from last week, Evan Rogers, who finished 10th, I think they trained together with T2T Compete. Yeah. And they just both really impressed me with how they competed against the field.
Yeah, for sure. I thought they both performed very well. And I think they performed optimal to their abilities, right? Like Evan cracked the top 10. Lee, I didn't know where Lee would finish in this. I've never seen him compete before. I've seen Evan do some competitions. So, but I think from what I saw, I'm sure Lee would want to do better, but I think that it was overall like a good performance in the weekend. Tanner.
Oh, Tanner. Thank you.
Yeah. Not the worst finish for Tanner. The overhead is just super challenging for him, and the overhead lunge, a couple of fails at the end. Like he had a good gap lead on a few people, and then there was like a wave of 5 dudes, and he had a couple of fails, and that just knocked off a lot of time. So he went out hungry and like attacked it and took some risks. And I mean, at that point in the weekend, like I would just so much rather see that, like someone just like give full effort. And even if it's not a perfectly polished execution, it was just like, you could tell he was like really trying and hungry and like was trying to earn another good event finish. And it was just like really close at the end there.
Yeah. He had a little bit of a back scare before that workout too. And he was, his brother was kind of acting as coach for him and trying to protect him and be like, hey, it might not be worth it to do this. And Tanner was like, hey, I'm not going to quit. I need to go out there and give it my all, which, I respect that. I mean, he obviously wasn't hurt bad enough that it would have kept him out, but I was just proud that he went out and pushed all the way through the workout. I think that the end of the workout exposed something that he needs to address, because it's happened at Wadapalooza with overhead lunges, last year snatching under pressure, this year clean and jerking under pressure, and then overhead. It's a theme in terms of just being able to manage lockout position overhead with a barbell. And it got exposed twice in the competition floor. So it's a continued training thing that he's going to have to get better there. But I think from a attitude execution standpoint, he kind of stayed in it in spite of, not having the weekend that he wanted right off the bat.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Very, very proud of that. Who else?
Just Jake and Noah.
Yeah.
So the final heat came down to basically Noah was in a position that he just basically had to like execute similar to what he did in training. He had I forget what the point gap was to 6.
It was like 30 points.
30. So, if you finish in like the top 6 in that heat, you're probably not going to be out of it.
Yep.
So it took, I think, a little bit of pressure off of him, but he also wanted to do really well on the workout. And Jake was in a position where he just had to crush it and get a little bit of help ahead of him.
Yep.
So Noah went out. His plan was unbroken, then pick the barbell up, unbroken front squats, drop it on the last one, squat clean, lunge, unbroken bar muscle ups, and then that same format for the end where he does the whole set of shoulder to overhead, drops it for a second, and then picks it up and lunges to the finish. And Jake had a similar strategy.
Yeah.
Noah had to come down off the rings on 14 because he was swinging all over the place. I think Jake went unbroken, right?
Jake went unbroken, but he was swinging too.
He was?
Yeah, like 6 reps in, he had to adjust because he was like freaking
they were
horizontal
like,
to the floor.
Noah was, you could like see him way back off the rings. And I was like, God,
it happens on those high rings
awkward.
when you 3, 2, 1 go, everyone runs into the rings.
And you like jump up quick.
If you run and jump, it kind of starts swinging and swaying. And it's just like you're trying to go fast because they feel so easy and fresh that it starts that swaying. So you have to kind of like time your kip. Sometimes you have to drop straight down to kind of like deaden out your swing.
Yeah. It ended up not really being a big deal.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the male field seemed to get to that bar muscle ups pretty close to the same time. There wasn't a ton of separation in that final heat. Then there was a little bit of separation there. Noah was near the lead. Jake was just behind where they were. And then they all basically finished a shoulder to overhead, dropped the bar. And it was like, who's going to pick the bar up and go first? Saxon picked it up and went right across. I think he could take the risk because he was in, he was trying to win at that point. And
the points were tight between him and Dolan.
Yeah. And he couldn't really, blow up and fall out of a game spot. So he took a risk. He wins the workout. And then it was a race, I think, between Noah, Dallin, and
Cole.
Or Noah, Jake, Cole.
I think more Noah, Jake,
Dallin
and Cole.
wasn't in the race.
Dallin
It was
wasn't
Noah,
there.
Jake, and Cole.
Okay, Noah,
and
Jake,
Spencer.
and Cole. Yeah. So it all happens really quick. I think Noah crosses in second.
Yep.
Cole crosses in third.
Like
and then,
millisecond.
Yeah, millisecond. And then Jake and Spencer race across the line. And unfortunately for Jake, even though he crushed the workout, the one person he really had to beat was Spencer because they were really tight in points.
They were 4 points apart.
Yeah. And then Tyler Christoffel, who was ahead of both of them, had like just a catastrophic ending to the workout.
It's tough to watch.
Yeah, it was just a hard, like he just kept failing the overhead lunge and getting no rep calls. And so he ended up falling out of contention, but Spencer got the 5th spot and Jake was right behind.
Adam Nash did the math, and if Jake would have finished 1.5 seconds faster, he would have qualified.
You got to try not to do those what ifs. So those are
painful. I know.
1 point. Yeah.
But honestly,
it's 12 points out.
He had it was just the time of finishing that event. But regardless, he had an amazing third day and he stayed in it the entire time. So
this is the best he's ever done at a regional in-person competition. I feel like I would say on 5 of the 6 workouts, he executed like a complete professional, come in on time with warm-ups, hit his warm-ups, executed according to his plan, fought for it. It's one little slip up on the legless rope climb workout in terms of just being ready to go on time in that workout. And, who knows, it could have been the distinguishing variable of, if you get a better warm-up. And those like little details, I feel like this whole leaderboard just shows the margin for error in the sport is getting so tight now, especially on the male side. On the female side, it seems like there's still a little bit of a depth gap. But on the male side, it's only a couple seconds on each workout, or maintaining the right mindset if you start to get no reps on a specific workout. But I would say that was the best I've ever seen him in competition, and he should be proud of that. And it also keeps the season alive. So now we're building an environment.
We got 3 people on site now.
Is it not close? Oh, okay.
We have a lot of 6th place finishes in the house.
It's good and bad.
It's good and bad.
Mixed feelings.
Yeah, the close misses are painful, but it's also, if you are close missing, it means that you're pretty damn good.
For sure.
Yep.
And then Noah.
That was an awesome finish for the whole weekend.
Yeah, Noah showed up on the last day. I don't know, what he tapped into, if he was frustrated or if he, just wanted to prove that he belonged, or if he really wanted the game spot. But I think he really showed that he's still a contender at the highest level. But it's a really good field, because even had he not put himself in that position with the clean and jerk miss, you're still talking about a really tight leaderboard and probably only moving up one spot.
He had great finishes, but if you look at the other guys that were up there, like take away the 19th and 10th, 3rd, 4th, 2nd, which is really good. But then everyone above him was 5th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 2nd, 3rd. Like they're just the top 5 guys were really, really strong.
Yeah. So I thought it was a good ending that we put somebody at the CrossFit Games, so now we have Noah and Alexis.
Oh, and my team qualified.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shoe fly
Storm Squadron. It's a hard name for me to remember. They did amazing all weekend. I think the expectation was to make it to the games. I think they executed super well. They cleaned up a lot of things that they were having trouble with in some of the simulation leading up. And everybody just kind of pulled together to communicate. I think at the end of the day, they were all really fit. And that I actually think is becoming more of a separator in team. Like obviously there are a lot of things, programming differences, order of events. But everyone on the team is starting to become more elite as individual athletes. And I think if there's enough practice for the team to know how team workouts operate, because it is different than individual for sure, that's actually, I think we'll see more super teams. I mean, they're not necessarily a super team, but we'll see more super teams kind of coming out in the future. But they were super consistent. I think the deficit handstand push-ups gave them a little bit of trouble, but it actually gave a lot of guys trouble. Like I think I even saw Luke Parker struggling with that, and some of just the bigger guys at the end of the weekend trying to keep up with, I think it was 48 reps of deficit kipping handstand push-ups mixed with worm thrusters in a really fast-paced event. But congratulations to Danielle and the team. Looking forward to their preparation for the games.
Thank you for listening to our MAC recaps.
Bye-bye.
I am no longer your host. Oh yeah, we might see you next week for Granite.
Back
but
for Granite.
These chumps won't be there. It'll
I
just
will
be me
not.
and Chris.
I am taking a break.
Yeah.
Peace.
Bye.
Red button. Red button.
Yes.
Red button time. Now. 3, 2, 1. 0.5. 0.25. 0.125.